Hi guys, and welcome to the next update on the e92 M3. Now as you can see, we have got the royal steering wheels back. I've got my red M button on. I've got my new wider longer DCT paddles, which everything has just come together. I've also painted the dash trims gloss black to match with the steering wheel centre. And do you know what, I'm so chuffed with the outcome. The e92 interior, while it was sort of luxury and comfort, it felt dated. It didn't feel like a sports car. The standard trim being like that flat plastic, the silly little paddles that were on there, it just sort of let it all down. And after being out in the E46 where I've got the larger paddles on there, it was always something I wanted to do. Now it's a bit risky going with an Alcantara steering wheel because I've got a pack of baby wipes in the dash if I ever get dirty hands, but do you know what, I'm just so happy with the inside. So the only real thing left now is obviously going to be trying to source a set of M4 seats just to bring it all together, and then we'll go on to the exterior side of things. But on this video we'll go through what it's like to all fit and removing all the items. Now as you can probably see, bits like the DCT stick, whilst not a majorly difficult job, it's not something that's available off the shelf, and I had a lot of people comment on Instagram, and I had a few messages with people saying, where did I buy this? So you can't buy them off the shelf, unfortunately, that I've seen. It is something you have to paint. But in this video I'll go through the full process on removing the trims, removing the DCT stick, removing the steering wheel, installing the M button and installing the paddles. So I hope you guys enjoy. In order to remove the steering wheel, you're going to need to remove the horn and the airbag unit, which is just simply a case of pressing a screwdriver between these small holes in the back of the steering wheel and releasing the horn. Once released, you'll then need to pop the airbag connections off. Again, make sure the battery is disconnected before proceeding with this step. As you can see from behind the steering wheel, there are just two prongs that hold the airbag unit in. It can be a bit fiddly at first, but get the screwdriver in the right place and it should pop off. With the horn unit removed, it's now time to remove the fascia, which is just a case of removing 3 T20 Torx screws, which are located behind the steering wheel. Should be relatively hand tight, so nice and easy to remove. With the trim off, it's then just a case of undoing the second set of T20s, holding the M Sport control panel and volume buttons in place. The DCT paddles are held in with just one screw. Once removed, you can then unplug the connector and slide the paddle out from the steering wheel assembly. Next, you'll need to remove the connectors. Be careful with this because they are fragile. The clip on the left has a push button and the one on the right is just a case of pulling out. Finally, it's just a 16mm to remove the main nut from the steering wheel. The unit may be a tight squeeze to pull off at first, but once removed you'll be left with a steering wheel squib. Be sure not to move that from its original position, and then it's just a case of move your steering wheel into your place of work. With the DCT paddles removed, it's now time to start taking the internals apart. You'll need to remove the clips that surround the outer case. I believe there was 3 or 4. It's just a case of putting a small flathead screwdriver in, prying them back and gently peeling the inner DCT control module out. With the outer case removed, you then have to remove the cap from the top. Similar tabs again. With the caps removed, you'll now be left with the open module, and you'll just need to remove the brass pin on the bottom left hand corner of a small pair of pliers, and it will just pry out. Carefully remove the pivot point with the ball bearing in place. It's just a case of then undoing the T10 Torx bit to switch the paddles over to your new one. As you can see, a great improvement visually, and they also feel much better to drive with. So with them swapped over, it's just a case of putting the paddle into the control unit and it should work as when removed. Again, being careful not to lose the ball bearing. The next upgrade is the red M Sport button. Now the reason I did this is just to make it stand out a little bit more. I found the black switches altogether, it's sort of blended in. So you start by first purchasing the red M Sport button. I do sell these along with the paddles. Make sure that you do buy one that's got the transparent so that the logo lights up. The next step is just simply take apart the unit. There's a couple of tabs to pop out. Once removed, carefully separate from the circuit board, and the switch will literally just fall out as soon as you put it upside down. Make sure you take note of how everything goes together, because all the other switches will fall out too. Once back together, it's just a case of clipping the back together, and as you can see, you've now got your red M button, easily returnable to standard, also like the paddles if you choose to at a later date. The next job was to remove the DCT trim cover, as I decided I wanted to paint this black to blend in with the rest of the trim I was painting. You simply need to heat the face of the DCT cover. Once done, it should literally peel back from the main stick, as it's only held on with double-sided tape. When you refit the stick, you will need to put new double-sided tape on because it didn't re-stick again. You'll then need to remove the gaiter simply by pulling at the front, and exposes the power cable, which is just a case of pulling out and releasing the tabs on either side. With the release, you can then undo the T20 Torx bit in the middle of the DCT stick, and then carefully remove the trim. The problem now is that the cable or plug won't fit through the gaiter or the DCT face, so you will have to de-pin the plug if you don't want to damage your gaiter, or alternatively you can cut the trim, but this is the only method that doesn't provide any permanent damage to the DCT stick, as the pins will just pop back in when you refit them. With it all removed, it was now time to head indoors and get all the trims painted. The interior trim removal is pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, I did have some issues where I've managed to actually delete some of the footage going into more detail, so unfortunately it's not going to be the most helpful part of the video. But essentially the trims do just pull towards yourself. So in regards to the dash trims, the one below the sat-nav drive centre, all of it just pops out. You just put a trim removal tool in the edge and sort of pry it out. The first time you remove it, it can be stiff. With regards to the door card trims, it's the same sort of thing. You just sort of pull them out. The first time you remove them, they will be tight, but it is a pretty straightforward job. So get yourself some trim removal tools so you don't damage any of the trims, and then as I say, it's just a case of prying it all out. The rear heater trim is held in by 6 prong clips. Again, it's just another case of pulling it all out. Once it's stripped, you can start dismantling it. It's just a couple of Torx screws on the back. And in order to remove the lid cover, you just need to pull it back and open it up, and you'll see there's a couple of tabs behind there. Pry them open. Once they've been removed, the cover pops off, and then it's just a case of flipping it upside down, and you just need to remove the tabs on the inside that release a sort of little chrome bit of trim, so you don't have to worry about masking it up. And as you can see, once you're all put back together, it's just a case of gluing it. The steering wheel trim, you can peel the M badge off, and then like I say, once you've completed your painting, it'll just be a case of putting some fresh double-sided tape down, and then the M stick can go back on, or you can buy new ones if you choose to. With the trims all removed and back inside, you can now see the prongs that hold it onto the dash. It's just a couple of like dowel points that slide on, and say the first time you move them they are a bit stiff, but after you've had them off a few times it makes sense. Next thing you need to do is just remove the start switch, squeeze the tabs in on the side, and it will literally just pop out. And then it's just a case of undoing the 8mm bolts that hold the centre fan in, and there's a few sort of tabs around. Just take your time with this because you don't want to snap any of the pins, sort of secure it all in place. As I say, they are quite fragile being an older car. The final step is just preparing everything for paint. I went through the course of wet sanding it down to 1200, putting on the primer, the colour, and then clear coating, and left everything to dry. And as I say, it's made a big difference to the interior. It's really brought all of it up, as I say, especially making it feel a lot more modern with a sort of piano black look. The DCT stick obviously had a lot of wear on it as well, so it was good to have that sanded back. And the centre trim now looks a lot more exciting for the glossier finish rather than the flat plastic. With the steering wheel back from Royal Steering Wheels, it was finally time to put everything back together. The alcantara and the leather centre strip with the white stitching ties in with the new seats that will be in the next episode. So if you did enjoy the video, make sure you give us a like and a subscribe. And to say part 2, we'll be installing a set of BMW M4 seats into the car and showing you how to get it all wired up so that the heated seats work and all the electric motors. So stay tuned and thanks for watching.